fasting is not a switch, it's a sequence. And the sequence is use up what's available, then access what's stored deeper. And the frustration people feel in the first 48 hours is real, but it's often based on an expectation that doesn't match physiology. Hey everyone, my name is Lisa Chance and I'm a fasting coach here at the Fasting Method, and I work with clients on metabolic health day in and day out. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever started a fast expecting their body to just flip a switch and start burning fat on hour 1, and then check the scale at hour 36 and thought, what's even happening here? One of the most common questions I get is about what's actually going on in the body when we fast, especially those first 24 to 48 hours. People see the Instagram posts, the dramatic before and afters, the stories of, I did a 48-hour fast and dropped 5 pounds. And then they do their first fast, feel kind of rough, maybe see a small drop that's mostly water, and wonder if they're broken. Consider this. When metabolic things start happening in your body, that depends on a variety of factors in the algorithm. From what you typically eat, your current eating strategy, and what you last ate. How much you exercise, how well did you sleep, how much insulin resistance do you have, how fat adapted or metabolically flexible are you? And that's in degrees, just to name a few. So you're not broken. Your body is just doing what bodies do, which is to use the fuel it has stored up close before it reaches for the fuel that is saved for later. So today we're going to walk through glycogen, gluconeogenesis, and the actual arc of a fast from I just stopped eating to I'm actually burning body fat. We'll cover why the first 48 hours often feels like nothing is happening and why that's not true, and why consistency is the secret that most people miss. And if you've ever wondered why Megan Ramos talks about the 336s and the 342s as the gold standard for weight loss, this episode will explain exactly why that is. So let's get into it. So my first question comes with, what is the body burning first? When we start fasting, what is the body actually using for fuel first? Answer, glycogen, full stop. Let me set up an analogy that Dr. Jason Fung often uses that I want you to hold in your head for this whole episode. Your body has 2 main energy systems. The first is the pantry. That's glycogen. Glycogen is stored glucose. It lives in your liver and in your muscles, and it's designated for fast access. Easy to get to, easy to use. The second storage system is more like a chest freezer in the basement. That's the body's fat. Way more capacity, but takes a few more steps to get to. When you eat, especially carbohydrates, but anytime you produce glucose response, your body fills the pantry first. Liver glycogen runs about 100 grams. Muscle glycogen is another 300 to 400 grams in most people. More if you have significant muscle mass. So total pantry capacity is somewhere around 400 to 500 grams. And here's what most people don't realize. Your body will not go looking in the freezer while the pantry is full. It's not efficient, and it's not how we evolved. When you start a fast, the first thing your body does is say, great, we got supplies right here. Let's use those. So why doesn't fat burning happen straight away when we begin to fast? The answer is because the pantry is in the way, not literally, but metabolically. Fat burning requires a specific hormonal and enzymatic environment. Your insulin has to be low. Your glucagon has to be up. The enzymes that break down fat, the lipases, have to be active. All of that happens only after your blood glucose has started to drop and your body recognizes that the easy access fuel is running low. So the first 18 to 24 hours of a fast are really about using up what's circulating and what's stored as glycogen. Your brain is largely running on glucose. Your muscles are dipping into their own glycogen stores if you're moving. The liver is doling out glucose to keep everything stable. And fat burning, it's ramping up in the background, but it's not the star of the show just yet. This is completely normal. It's not a sign that fasting isn't working. It's a sign your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, using the fuel that's easiest to access first and then transitioning. So a key takeaway here for you is fasting is not a switch, it's a sequence. And the sequence is use up what's available, then access what's stored deeper. And the frustration people feel in the first 48 hours is real, but it's often based on an expectation that doesn't match physiology. How long does it typically take for the body to switch from using glycogen to burning fat? For someone who's brand new to fasting, the glycogen to fat transition usually takes about 18 hours to 2 days. That's a range, and it depends on how much glycogen you had stored to begin with, how active you are during the fast, your body's composition, and how recently you were eating a lot of carbs. If you were eating a typically high carb diet right up until the start of your fast, your pantry is completely full. You're starting with a lot of glycogen to burn through, so the transition takes longer. If you've been eating lower carb already, your pantry is less full at the start, so you switch to burning fat sooner. This is one of the reasons a 24-hour fast feels different from a 36 or 42. At 24 hours, many first-time fasters haven't fully transitioned yet, and at 36 to 42 hours, the transition has typically happened. You're actually in fat-burning mode. If someone is fasting regularly, does the body get better at making that switch over time? Answer, yes, enormously. So this is one of the most underappreciated aspects of fasting. With each consistent, continuous fast, your body burns through its glycogen stores faster and starts tapping into fat sooner. Why? Because your body is adapting. The enzymes involved in fat burning become more abundant and more responsive. Your cells actually get better at using ketones and free fatty acids as fuel. You become, in the language we use, fat adapted or metabolically flexible. A seasoned faster who has been doing regular 36s and 42s might even get into fat burning within 12 to 16 hours. Someone brand new to fasting may still be burning through their glycogen at 24 hours. Same person, same body, different training history. This is exactly why Megan Ramos called the 336s or the 342s the gold standard for weight loss. When Megan was crunching the numbers from the Toronto clinic, the people who lost the most weight weren't necessarily the ones doing the longest fast or the most dramatic fast. They were the ones doing the 336-hour fast or the 342-hour fast in a week. Consistency over months. That rhythm gave their body enough repetition to become efficient at the glycogen to fat switch without so much time between fasts that the adaptation faded. Key takeaway here, consistency is what trains the body. A single heroic 5-day fast is impressive, but 3 42-hour fasts a week done consistently for months produces more durable metabolic change. And you don't have to start there. Some of you are working up to your first 24, and that's exactly where you start, with 324s a week, or getting to 324s. The repetition is what trains the system. We often hear the term gluconeogenesis. What is that, and when does it come into play during fasting? This is one of my favorite topics because gluconeogenesis is where people get unnecessarily worried about fasting. So let me demystify it. Break the word down: gluco for glucose, neo for new, and genesis for creation. It literally means new glucose creation. Gluconeogenesis is your liver's ability to manufacture new glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. Those sources are amino acids from protein, lactate from exercising muscles, and glycerol, which is the backbone of triglycerides stored as body fat. Why does this matter? Your brain needs glucose. It can run largely on ketones once you're fat adapted, but some tissues still prefer or require glucose. Your red blood cells, for example, don't have mitochondria, so they can only use glucose. Your body absolutely will not let blood glucose crash to zero. It just won't. So when you're fasting and your incoming glucose from food is zero, your liver steps in. It starts making glucose from what's available. In short-term fasting, think overnight, gluconeogenesis ramps up gradually and becomes significant at about 12 to 24-hour mark. In prolonged fasting, more than 24 hours, gluconeogenesis becomes a major source of glucose, and it can continue for days or even weeks, depending on what precursors are available and your individual metabolic state. And here's where people get nervous. They hear gluconeogenesis and they think, wait, if my liver is making glucose, am I still in ketosis? Is this going to knock me out of fat burning? No. Gluconeogenesis does not knock you out of ketosis. And the body is so cool. Gluconeogenesis only increases up to a point where we need it. Our bodies are much smarter than we are. And here's why. Gluconeogenesis is demand driven. Your liver only makes the glucose your body actually needs, not a gram more. It's a small batch glucose bakery, making exactly what the order sheet says. If you're fat adapted, your brain and most of your tissues are already happily running on ketones, so the demand for glucose is low, and gluconeogenesis stays modest. Ketones continue, fat burning continues, and the two processes coexist. And here's another key critical point I want you to hang on to. Spiking your insulin stops gluconeogenesis, which means when you break your fast with something sweet or something that spikes glucose hard, you shut down the very process that it was helping fuel you through the fast. More importantly, that same glucose spike also shuts down fat burning. This is why how you break a fast matters, maybe more than anything else about the fast itself. If you've ever done a long fast and felt incredible and then broken it with a heavy carb meal and felt wrecked for 48 hours after, this is in part why. You didn't just spike insulin and stop fat burning. You also abruptly told your liver to stop doing the quiet, elegant work it had been doing for the entire fast. So break the fast gently. Protein, fat, some fiber. Let the insulin response stay modest. Your body will thank you for it. If we're eating low carb or mostly fat and protein, does the body still refill glycogen stores? Yes. This is a question that comes up constantly, especially in our community with members doing keto or very low carb alongside their fasting. Even if you're eating almost no carbohydrates, like you're carnivore or something, right? Your body can still replenish glycogen. How? Gluconeogenesis. Your liver converts certain amino acids from protein and the glycerol from fat into glucose. And some of that newly made glucose gets stored as glycogen in the liver and in your muscles. But here's the practical piece. Gluconeogenesis is less efficient than simply storing glucose directly from dietary carbohydrates. So if your diet is very low carb, your glycogen stores will not be topped up to the same level they would be on a moderate or high carb diet. Your pantry is never stocked to the brim. For most of our community, that feature is great. It's not a bug. Partially filled glycogen pantry means your body is already closer to fat burning by default. You don't have as much glycogen to burn through when you start to fast, so you transition to fat burning faster. You're not constantly spiking insulin to fill and refill a full pantry. You're naturally more metabolically flexible. This is one of the reasons low carb eating pairs so beautifully with fasting. You're not working against yourself. You're not filling the pantry with one hand while trying to empty it with the other. The eating pattern and the fasting pattern are pulling in the same direction. So another key takeaway here. On a low carb or keto eating plan, glycogen stores refill partially via gluconeogenesis, but not to the max. That's by design, and it's one of the big reasons this eating style makes fasting easier and more efficient over time. Does movement or exercise help the body use up glycogen faster? Yes. And this is actually a powerful strategic tool. Quick numbers for you. The average person stores 400 to 500 grams of glycogen in muscles and liver combined. So during moderate intensity movement, like a brisk walk, a bike ride, moderate yard work, you burn through glycogen at roughly 2 to 3 grams per minute. So glycogen stores can last about 2 to 3 hours of continuous moderate activity before they're significantly depleted. For fasting, this has practical implications. If you want to speed up the glycogen to fat transition during a fast, move. A long morning walk on the day of your fast, a gentle bike ride, some fun yard work if you enjoy gardening, cleaning, anything that taps into muscle glycogen shortens the time to fat burning. Don't go out there and run a marathon. Think slow and gentle, easy movement. A note on intensity. Cardio and low to moderate movement burn through glycogen fairly efficiently. High intensity training, like heavy lifting or sprints, also use glycogen, but it spikes cortisol, which can temporarily raise blood glucose. That's not bad, but it's a different tool than a walk. If your goal is to accelerate the glycogen burn during a fast, moderate pace movement is often the sweeter spot. A walking fast, where you're moving at an easy pace throughout the day of your fast, is one of the most efficient and effective strategies I know for people who are stuck getting past the glycogen phase. You're not passively waiting for glycogen to burn down, you're actively using it up. And here's the bonus. The more muscle mass you have, the larger your glycogen storage capacity, the bigger the pantry. That sounds like it would work against fat burning, but it's the opposite. More muscle means more places for glucose to go when you do eat. Less glucose hanging around in the blood, better insulin sensitivity, and a better metabolic buffer overall. So key takeaway in this section, move during your fast. Slow, gentle movement, especially if you're not yet fully fat adapted. It accelerates the glycogen to fat transition and long-term muscle build. It's one of the best things you can do for your metabolic health. If you don't feel good, if you feel faint, sit down. But otherwise, move. If someone feels like they're fasting, but not seeing results yet, could this early stage be part of the reason? Absolutely. And this is the segment I most want the newer fasters in our community to hear. If you've been fasting for a few weeks, maybe you've done a handful of 24s or 36s, and the scale isn't moving the way you expected. The early stage metabolism we're talking about is very likely part of the reason. And here's what's happening. In those first few weeks, your body is still learning the switch. The glycogen to fat transition is slow. Your enzymes are upregulating. Your cells are getting better at using ketones, and you're building the infrastructure for metabolic flexibility, but you haven't quite finished building it yet. So the really productive fat burning isn't fully online. You're also likely seeing water weight shifts. A few grams of glycogen stored in your body holds about 3 to 4 grams of water with it. And if you burn glycogen, that water is released. So that dramatic 5-pound drop that people brag about on Instagram after their first 48-hour fast, a huge chunk of that is water from glycogen depletion. And it comes right back when they eat. It wasn't fat loss anyway. The real durable fat loss shows up later, like weeks 4, 6, 8. Once your body has actually become efficient at the switch, that's when the weekly fasts start to add up. That's when you look at the scale over a month instead of a week and see your real change. So if you're in week 1, 2, 3, the scale is barely moving, that's not failure. That's prerequisite. The body you're building in those weeks is the one that will burn the fat efficiently later. Consistency is what unlocks it. The hardest part of fasting is almost always the first few weeks. If you can get through that, if you can stay consistent when the scale isn't rewarding you with that number you want to see, the metabolic changes happening underneath will show up in time. Trust the process. So let me give you a few key things to leave you with today. Your body uses glycogen before it uses body fat. That's by design. It's not a flaw. The glycogen to fat transition takes about 18 hours to 2 days for new fasters, less for seasoned ones. Gluconeogenesis is your liver making new glucose from amino acids, lactate, and glycerol. It does not knock you out of ketosis. Spiking insulin stops gluconeogenesis and stops fat burning. How you break your fast matters. Break it gently. Low carb eating keeps the glycogen pantry partially filled, which makes your next fast easier. Movement accelerates glycogen depletion and speeds up fast burning. Walk. If you feel good, walk during your fast. If you're not seeing results in the first few weeks, that's a prerequisite, not a failure. Consistency trains the switch. Have you ever noticed a point in your fasting where things started to feel easier or different? Maybe an hour mark when the hunger eased, or a week when the scale finally moved after being at a plateau. Share in the comments or tag us on social. We learn so much from your real world experiences. And always keep fasting consistently, keep trusting your body, and keep asking the questions that get you closer to real understanding. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.